Professor Firoz Cachalia, the Minister of Police, who has just come out of a briefing where the police felt the need to brief the nation about the state of preparedness, but whether everything is in order. Was there a need for that? Someone may ask.
Yes, you know, if anything goes wrong,
can hold it your word.
Exactly. It's the ministers who have be accountable. So whenever we have these major events, G20 recently, the opening of Parliament or the SONA address, there's an operation of all the law enforcement agencies, which is they are very good at securing areas, making sure that such events proceed without incident. They're quite remarkable, actually. There are good reasons why G20 went off without a hitch, and this event similarly. So there's very careful planning. At different stages, they brief the cluster ministers. We have to take responsibility for ensuring that that everything is in order, because if there's anything that goes wrong, we are the ones who will be held accountable.
But Minister, I suppose one of the bittersweet, or was it ironic, that when you have these events, they do go ahead without incident. But on a daily basis, South Africans don't get that kind of treatment and service from the men and women in blue. We're in the Western Cape, and I think in the latter part of last year, almost every week, there were reports of gun violence. My point here is the level of coordination, some would say, is very possible when it comes to protecting the elite, the political elite in this instance, but not for the person in Inyanga, in Khayelitsha.
No, I don't think that's the right way of looking at this. These are quite defined areas. There's a specific event, and the planning and securing of such events involves particular kinds of capabilities. Resources are concentrated. You're securing an area, you're stopping the flow of traffic, closing off roads, and so forth. So doing this kind of thing, the police are, with the support of other law enforcement agencies, are exceptional. There are reasons why, as I said, these events proceed without incident. The challenges of improving safety and reducing crime in our communities, that's an ongoing challenge, and we can have a discussion about what the police are doing and what they should be doing to improve the levels of safety in Nyanga, Guguletu, Mitchell's Plain, you know, communities across the country. That's a different conversation.
Minister, we were speaking just before you got on air, and I was saying you came when things were hot on the block. There was that 6th of July briefing, which led to you sitting in this chair, in this particular position. We've heard from the various commissions and committees responding to that. And of course, there has been a level of shock about the state of our law enforcement agencies. But, you know, notwithstanding allegations against IPID, which is meant to be an institution that's a police watchdog. What is your assessment on that? You know, recently there was a statement regarding what seems to have been a lie, according to IPID, from KZN police regarding 4 extortionists. How are you going to manage issues like that?
Look, I will say this. I think the public, and that includes myself in a way, watching what's coming out of the Madlanga Commission. I mean, I was listening to the brigadier, who has an important responsibility with forensics.
Yeah.
And I mean, explaining how she was receiving bribes from Kat Matlala, you know, a criminal who's in jail, is just another indication of the extent of the problem. I think that the statements that were made by General Mkwanazi at the time, in detail, there are still areas that need clarification. But overall, the picture that is emerging is even more worrying. So we have a job to do. I have said from the very beginning, when there were others perhaps who were not as optimistic or enthusiastic about the appointment of this commission, is that this is a reset moment. The country is having an opportunity to see what's really going on. The lance of the boil in some way has been pierced. We are seeing what's going on. And we now have an opportunity as a society to discuss what needs to be done, what I've called a reset moment. What reforms are required in the South African Police Service and so forth. Now, I do want to say this. The Madlanga Commission and the ad hoc committee also give, in a way, an important picture, a window, but it's also a partial and selective one. From where I'm sitting, we have a police service made up of 180,000 police officers who are policing this country across the country, in precincts across the country every day. People are doing their work, people are working in a focused way, who are hardworking, who are honest, who respect their uniforms, who are committed to improving safety. So we have a lot to work with. We can build from here. There are problems that need to be addressed, but I don't think that we should be listening to the evidence that has been led in a way that defeats our spirit. We have a lot of work to do. Let's look ahead. Let's discuss what needs to be done, because I have the confidence that this country has the vision and the resilience and the people to learn from our mistakes and to move forward.
Minister, sorry, Tafi. I was going to ask, what can you do in the interim? But the President has directed you to put together a special investigations task team. Last week, the National Police Commissioner said that task team would be beginning its work. Who's part of this task team? And are you confident that they are beyond reproach for this reset moment?
So I haven't yet had a briefing on the warm bodies that are part of that task team. What I've said to the Commissioner is I want to make sure that he selects the best, that the investigations are prosecution-led. So Andy Mutibi, the new DPP, is a part of that task team. They will be required to report to me, and I will be required to report to the President. Criminal investigations do take time, but the Commissioner has said that he will report in 3 months. Bear in mind that we have also instituted a disciplinary process. All 14, that's also the Metro people and the Kuruleni people, are now on precautionary suspensions. We are setting up panels, and the Commissioner has agreed with me that we will appoint for the first time outside experts to preside over these disciplinary processes, to introduce an element of professionalism, impartiality, transparency, and so forth. So we are working steadily. We are taking steps that need to be taken, and hopefully over time, cumulatively, they will change the picture.
Notwithstanding the issues you're raising around more information or clarity is still being needed, Lieutenant General Mkwanazi's, the issues that he has raised, notwithstanding the fact that there's a commission in place which is still hearing evidence from people, notwithstanding the fact that nothing or not many things are as conclusive as they may be. There has to be issues with regard to both the SAPS but also the IP that have stood out for you where you would have, I would imagine, sat and said, something needs to be done? What are some of those, 2, 3 of those issues that have stood out for you in time that you've taken or assumed this responsibility, having seen and heard what has been happening at the commission, but also from what other people, regular meetings, I would imagine you would have had with the National Police Commissioner and his top brass?
So a number of areas leap out at you. Crime intelligence needs attention. Procurement in the police service and, of course, in other departments, but in the police service particularly, needs significant attention. IPID. IPID is supposed to be a constitutionally independent body. I'm not supposed to be interfering in their work, which raises some interesting questions, doesn't it? What are now my responsibilities as a minister? But there is no question that the functioning of IPID needs attention. Does it need legislative reform, for instance? We have to appoint a head of IPID. I want to make sure that all the appointments that we are now going to be making, including those of provincial commissioners. There are 3 provincial commissioners who have to be appointed. We have to appoint the head of IPID. We have to appoint a new head of the DPCI, even crime intelligence.
Yeah.
So I'm having a conversations with the National Commissioner about how to constitute the panels that will make those appointments. And I'm definitely going to introduce outside experts, people who understand how to professionalize the police service, people who are independent of the executive, but also independent of the police. So I don't think we should be waiting. When one is thinking about reform, it's not a sequential process. I want to have a dynamic, interactive process, engagement with the Madlanga Commission in effect. They're going to be reporting in 3 months' time, but it does not mean that that we should not take any action for the next 3 months. And I'm quite determined to finalize some proposals which are on the table.
Any order of priority?
Yes, I think crime intelligence is important, and the reform of the DPCI, because we need to get that right in order to fight the gangs, in order to deal with organized crime. I think procurement reform is essential to ensure that SAPS is not infiltrated by cartels, and that the resources available to the police are not misappropriated and misdirected. I mean, let's take that Matlala contract.
Yeah.
That was a contract for the wellness and well-being of our police officers. We have to make sure that the right people are brought in to provide that service. You know, that it's not corrupted by cartels and so forth. So that's a big priority. I would say IPID's emerging, listening to the evidence needs attention. I think that the private security industry, there's also evidence of infiltration to the private security industry, the proliferation of guns. One area that I have a strong, it makes me angry, is the proliferation, the access to drugs. I've seen how it devastates communities. I come from a community itself that has been devastated by drugs. So this is something we have to deal with.
Minister, very quickly, do you believe that the National Police Commissioner, given how in some of the testimony at the Madlanga Commission has shown, firstly, the infiltration, the alleged infiltration has been at a senior level, but also it would seem that the National Police Commissioner has been found wanting in his inability to take decisions and deal decisively with some of the internal squabbles between the top generals within the South African Police Service?
Look, I think the National Commissioner has had a difficult job. There is no evidence before any of these inquiries that has led me to believe that the National Commissioner is not someone I can't work with. And I'm looking for all these reform initiatives to consult with him, to engage with him, to find a way forward with him. and where necessary to bring in support. Support for myself and for him. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
The National Planning Commission made a proposal to establish a board. It's an important proposal. I am considering very seriously the implementation of that proposal. That the role of that board will be to advise the National Commissioner and myself, but primarily the National Commissioner, on the professionalization of the police service. I'm looking at establishing, but I don't want to talk too much about it at this point, of a multi-stakeholder anti-gang monitoring capability in the ministry, because I need that kind of information in order to assess whether the police, in the implementation of the strategy that we jointly developed, are implementing that strategy effectively. So those are just two other initiatives which I'm currently working on.
And hopefully the monies will go to the right places this time around. Acting Police Minister Firoz Cachalia, absolutely, and that's what we've been hearing at the Commissions of Inquiry. We're going to take a short break here at outside the Cape Town City Hall, but we'll have plenty more to talk about as we try, in our minds at least, try and figure out what will be important to feature in President Cyril Ramaphosa's 10th State of the Nation address. Stay with us.